Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. If this is your first time joining us, we want to welcome you. It's great to have you with us today. The Rising Generation exists to inspire and equip Christian leaders from all walks of life, from all around the world, to fulfill their God-given potential. By hearing these interviews with established, internationally recognized leaders, we hope you'll be inspired to connect the dots between where you are now and where it is God has called you to be. Now, to receive notifications about future episodes, simply subscribe to our podcast show by either on iTunes if you're on Apple, or on Stitcher, the Stitcher app if you're on Android. You can find out how to do that just by going to our webpage at www.errollawson.com/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends, share it with your loved ones. Hopefully they will also benefit from the content. Guys, thanks for listening. Before we go into today's show, here's some news for you. Hey guys, how you doing? It's Errol here. Hope you're doing great today. Before we go into our interview today, I want to give you just a bit of a heads up on our Rising Generation campaign that started on the 1st of October. Now, if you're not aware already, we've been doing these interviews now. We've taken some of the nuggets from the interviews and put them into a fantastic book, a resource called The Rising Generation, which is an amazing resource for emerging leaders, established leaders that will help you to step into your biggest challenges and become the leader that God has designed you to be. Now, the way the campaign works is this. Our goal is to get 1,000 pre-orders of the book between now and the end of October, and all the profits from the campaign are going to go towards our work in Africa, in Ghana. We're working with young people and giving them leadership training and soft skills training and even more. And so for the last 15 years, I've been working as a leadership coach, a consultant, working in education and in business. You can check out my website for more information. I'm a John Maxwell trained coach, speaker, and trainer. My appeal to you today is this. I want to offer my services to you, to your church, to your business, to your organization, to you as an individual in return for your support for this campaign. Let me give you an example of some of the packages that I'm offering to you. If you were to pre-order 150 copies of the Rising Generation book for your team, for your organization, for your church, or for your business, in return, I would offer you firstly a 90-minute live keynote address on a leadership topic of your choice, along with a Q&A for your organization or team. I'd also offer you a one-day leadership workshop for your team or organization, again on a leadership topic of your choice. And also, in addition to that, give you a free half-day one-to-one or group coaching session, again for yourself as a leader, or for your core team, or for your wider team on a leadership topic of your choice, all in return for your contribution, which is a $5,000 contribution. You're going to get $8,900 worth of value for your investment, and all the profit goes to the work in Ghana. How awesome is that? And there's similar packages. There's so many offers I've got. Another option is the $1,500 package, which for your $1,500 contribution, you'll get 20 copies of the book for your team or organization. And also a one-day leadership workshop with myself, again for your team, your organization. I'll come in and train your team on a leadership topic of your choice. How amazing is that? So much value. And there are many more offers in line with your budget, what you're able to invest. I want to reach out to you guys. Go and check out the website to make this campaign a success. We really need your support. I'm banking on you. So please share this with your friends and help us to spread the word. We appreciate you. God bless you. Enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome again to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with myself, Errol Lawson, and my special guest today is Dr. Jonathan Oloyede. Dr. Jonathan was born in Britain but bred in Nigeria. He's a medical doctor by profession and called as a missionary to England and Europe. He was radically saved from Islam within the wake of the revival that hit the Nigerian universities in the 80s. He responded to the call to Europe in 1991 while on a 3-month holiday in London when the Holy Spirit visited him with a clear message saying, "Jonathan, you are not in England by accident, but you are here by divine design. You are part of my recruitment to this region of the world in preparation for the coming of my son, Jesus Christ. Therefore, drop your agenda and pick up my program." Dr. Jonathan is now also the leader of the National Day of Prayer and Worship here in the UK. Dr. Jonathan, welcome again to the podcast.
Good day to you, Errol, and thank you for bringing me onto your platform.
Awesome. Thank you. Please just do give us a glimpse into your world and fill in any gaps in your bio for us right there, if you will.
Well, I was a Muslim when I met the Lord, and I was converted from Islam to Christianity in medical school. Mm-hmm. I came to England, as you said, on the 3-month holiday, and God began to show me the future of this nation in dreams and visions. Wow. And that was my calling.
What was the agenda you had to drop?
Yes, he made it very clear that I was being called into full-time ministry, mm-hmm. and that I had to leave medicine behind, which was kind of difficult for me. I struggled with that for a while. But then as I launched out, and we began to do ministry early on in 91, 92 when I arrived. We planted Glory Bible Church in 92. I went full-time in 93, and I've not looked back ever since. I met my wife at the fellowship. We got married in 94, and we have 2 lovely kids, Sam, who is now 21, 22, and my daughter, who is 15, going on 16.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. And I know you're now leading the National Day of Prayer, and it's an amazing movement. How did that start, and how did you know that was what God wanted you to do?
Well, I was minding my business, as I would say, Errol, in church, pastoring, and I had some of these encounters and these dreams of God showing me what was going to be happening in the United Kingdom, and these visions. And one of the most powerful ones was being in this stadium, which I knew to be Wembley, but the Twin Towers. It was not the Wembley as I knew it, and people there were lots of people in the stadium, and people were worshiping God, and the pulpit was empty, and a voice says, "When my people gather, I am the one that speaks." Mm-hmm. And I knew that the next person to show up at the pulpit or the podium would be the Lord. And I came out of that vision not fully understanding what it meant until 10 years later, when the old stadium was demolished and a new stadium was built. And when I saw the new stadium, new Wembley Stadium, I almost screamed, or I actually screamed at somebody, and I said, I know that stadium. I've been there before. I've been there. And one day somebody's going to put on an event at Wembley and gather Christians to worship and to pray.
Wow.
I didn't realize it was going to be me.
Wow. And you've since done that?
Yes, in 2006, mm-hmm. The Lord began to speak to me. I've been speaking to me since 2003, 2004, getting involved with the wider church from my own local church where I was resident pastor. And in 2005, I put on a prayer event for the Evangelical Alliance. And in 2006, he told me to launch the Global Day of Prayer, which I did with the support of a number of national leaders at Westminster Chapel. And then in 2007, we held our first stadium event at West Ham, West Ham's stadium.
Wow.
The old bowling ground now.
Okay.
And that was an amazing event.
Wow. And have you done any since then?
Oh yes, from 2007 we went on to do an event at the grounds of their rival club called Millwall Stadium. Mm-hmm. And Millwall and West Ham usually clash a lot. Yeah. And God led us to do the event at Millwall Stadium. And then from Millwall, we went back to West Ham. And then in 2010, and then from 2011, we did a national event for leaders at Wembley, the Grand Hall. Mm-hmm. And then in 2012, we held the National Day of Prayer at Wembley Stadium. In 2013, we held the stadium event in St. Helens up north. Mm-hmm. And we also supported the Bristol Stadium event. And we are supporting the stadium event that's happening with J. John at the Emirates next year, and we're supporting another event, stadium event happening in Northampton in 2017. So we've been pushing stadium events, stadium prayer, stadium platforms for some years now. Next year will be 10 years of doing that.
Wow. So tell us, what does it take? Someone listening right now, they've got similar aspirations or dreams to maybe fill a stadium with thousands of young people worshiping God and praying. What would you say to them? Who do they need to become even? Advise them if you will.
I'll tell you, my first advice is don't do it except you're sure the Lord's told you to do it. Because those stadium events almost killed me. I in many respects. Putting on a stadium event, number one, is a spiritual affront to the kingdom of darkness. And you're basically saying that we're raising the profile of the church to unite and to pray, excuse me, and to bring heaven down. The united prayer of the church cannot be overestimated. And to take what is a public platform, the stadium events where people are worshiping a different sport, and to turn it into a worshiping platform to the Lord is a major spiritual task. Secondly, I would say to them that they need to prepare. Having had the prophetic word, they need to prepare a lot. They need to prepare themselves, prepare the team, and make sure they know what they're doing, and they're bringing the right.
What does that preparation look like?
Preparation looks like timing, the right timing, the right location, the right team around you, the right expertise, media, administration, whether it's event management, whether it's mobilization, the right spiritual mentors, older and younger, around you, and to know the timing of God, and to do the event within the timing of God. Those are some of the key things I can just say. Raising the funds is a major spiritual exercise. You have to know who is going to give the funds. You have to break down the funding into in bite-sized format for the church, and to make it easy for people to get to and for people to come to. Stadiums do not allow free events, so you have to have some kind of ticketed payment of some sort, at least to cover payment. When we did the first one, I wanted it to be free. They said we can't do it for free, so we did it at £3 just to cover the cost of administration of the tickets. And when we were going to put on the first stadium event, the leaders of the church in the nation said to me, "We don't do stadium events, Jonathan. Getting people to a prayer meeting in a church is a difficult task. To get people to come to pray in a stadium is an impossible task. So put on an entertainment event. Don't make it a prayer event." And I went to the Lord, and the Lord said, "Put on a prayer event." And so I went to them and I said, "The Lord has told us to put on a prayer event." They said, "Well, we've just had one event in a church. The first one we did was at Westminster Chapel." They said the next one should be in like a hall of 5,000, from 1,000 to 5,000. That makes sense. To go into a stadium that seats 20,000 people plus it doesn't make any sense. So I went to the Lord, and the Lord said, "Tell the leaders and your group to take a stand." And so we counted that a stand takes about 5,000. So when I went to them, they agreed. They said, "Yeah, that makes sense." So we took a stand in the stadium, and we opened it up to people to buy tickets. The first stand was filled up in no time.
Wow.
And then another stand had to be opened up for us, and that stand was also filled. And then another stand was filled, and then another stand was filled.
Wow, the whole place was filled.
We had about 22,000 plus people there on that day.
Praise God.
Yeah. It was a major event. West Ham felt we had about 25, even though our ticketing numbers were 18,000. We know there were many more people that came into the stadium through other means into the stadium. Yes, so we had 20,000 plus people, and it rained, and I didn't think people were going to show up in the rain.
They still came out. That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic. That's really inspirational, to many, certainly emerging leaders, of what God can do, what is possible when He's spoken to somebody and they respond and they obey and they step out.
Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no-obligation introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
What's been your biggest leadership challenge so far along your leadership journey?
Yes, disunity. I think to allow people to agree, we had some very enthusiastic evangelicals who were against the whole idea of Christians uniting to pray. And they felt it was not biblical. They felt the whole church should not be allowed to unite to pray. Only those who have an emphasis on the cross and on Christ. And I said, well, everybody we're inviting are Christians who believe in Jesus. Anyone else can come if they want to be part of the prayer meeting. And they went around really picketing our events. It was horrible, but God used it to toughen us, to let us know we're on the right track. In uniting the church to pray.
Wow. That's interesting. And so what was the lesson there, you think? What is the lesson for us as leaders?
I think the lesson is that everybody cannot agree with you. And you cannot wait for everybody to agree with you. You have to go with the coalition of the willing, which is the principle of Gideon. He was trying to take 32,000 when God wanted him to just take 300. And it's the people that God has called alongside you, the people that will hear the message when you begin to preach what God has said. Not everybody will agree with you. Not all the leaders will agree with you. Some leaders will stand by to see how you succeed. And some would stand by just to see you fail. And you have to lean on God. You have to go with what God is saying. When David came back to his camp, his wife and children and a number of people had been taken. If you remember that account, and even some of his close leaders were turning on him, and David had to strengthen himself in the Lord and hear a word from God, and then take that word to lead the whole group out. And I believe that that's one of the greatest challenges of the believer, is being able to hear the voice of God above the voice of man. When people you respect and people who are older, more experienced than you, begin to tell you what you should do that is contrary to the word of God that is told you, how do you press in, hold on, and stay with what God is saying, irrespective of what man is saying? The fear of man is a snare, but it can be very enticing and very difficult to ride above or rise above the clamor of men, the disapproval of men.
Amen. And, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. At this juncture then now, 10 years in, I guess, in the stadium journey, and in this ministry that you're in right now, having obviously pastored a long time before, how do you now define success at this stage?
This is where I've always defined success. My definition of success is ticking God's box. It is ticking what God has assigned to you, what God has called you to do, which is different from what God has called someone else to do. Success is doing the will of God. That is how I define success. The early apostles, many of them were successful in obeying the call of God to take the commission into the world. But many of them died horrible deaths, in a way that many in the church would not define success right now. If we look at our Lord Jesus Christ and look at him through the prism of what many would define as prosperity, the prosperity gospel, Jesus was a failure. Because he, the creator of the universe, chose to come through the humble womb of a virgin girl in an obscure town of Galilee or Bethlehem. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Chooses to be a carpenter's son. If we were going to choose how best to evangelize the world, Errol, you and I would look for the most powerful media platform, the most powerful family, and you and I, would have put Jesus in Caesar's palace. We would have raised him as a Roman. We would have raised him as someone from the royal family, so that the message of the gospel can get out to the whole of the world through the superpower of Rome. But God chooses a different route and chooses the obscure town and the obscure nation of Israel to be the landing pad for the arrival of the creator of the universe from his vast world of worlds of the universe into our earth. The definition of success has nothing to do with human achievements or human accolade. It has to do with the will of God. Jesus died at 33, miserable criminal death in the eyes of the world. That was a waste. But in the eyes of eternity, in the eyes of God, it was 100% successful. So we have to define success through the eyes of God, or else we can live some very miserable lives, thinking we are failures when we are successful. So I define success as fulfilling God's agenda and the will of God.
Amen. And John Maxwell said that the secrets to our success are hidden in our daily agenda or our daily routine. Typically, what does the first 90 minutes of your day look like?
Well, typically, I've taught my children to wake up and the first person they talk to is God. And that before they say hello to anybody, they should say hello to God. I've also taught that the altar, the private altar, is the secret of your success. In Mark 1:35, it says, "Rising up a great while before day, Jesus departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed." So my first part of my day starts with talking to God. Typically, it will be to read my Bible, to read the scriptures as and when I can. And this is my typical routine. and my rhythm. My rhythm is to begin to engage with God, to talk with God, to pray, and to present my day before God for God to help me.
That's great. And have there been any other key habits that have contributed towards your success?
I personally, part of my practical routine or my rhythm is to ensure that I have moments of rest. Mm-hmm. So any particular week, one day or so will be a day when I'm doing little or nothing. I have a rhythm of the Sabbath. I live a Sabbath. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that it has to be Saturday, it has to be Sunday. But within the week, one day out of 7 is a day of rest, a day of relaxation, a day to talk to God, a day to engage with family, just a day to rest. Mm-hmm. I'm not one for holidays as such, even though we do go on holidays every now and then, but my rejuvenation and my longevity is, the secret of it is the Sabbath rhythm, where in any given week there's a day of rest. I also like talking to God out loud wherever I am. I just like talking to him like he's a person. Mm-hmm. Either I complain or I pray or I talk, I engage him in my thoughts. I just engage him and allow him to talk to me. I have to hear God speak to me on a daily or regular basis.
That's great. Thank you. And what's your biggest weakness as a leader?
I think my biggest weakness would be impatience.
Okay.
To run ahead of God or to respond to something, and then I'm thinking, did I even ask God about that? Did I talk to God about it? I can be spontaneous, and that's both a strength and a weakness. And so I am constantly having to ask God to help me not to be too spontaneous, impatient, and to be more circumspect, and to be slower to act and quicker to hear before I react. I think that's my greatest weakness. I would have acted before sometimes even getting God's permission or something, and that's my greatest weakness.
And what's your biggest strength?
My altar. Mm-hmm. My altar is my greatest strength. Where I hear God, where God directs me. So God is always correcting me or redirecting me, and that helps me to stay on track. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's great.
I think my greatest strength is my ability to hear God. It's my ability to hear and sense what God is saying. It's my greatest strength.
Amen. Amen. And at the beginning of your leadership journey, what, if anything, was holding you back from going into leadership?
I've always been a leader. Even when I didn't think I was a leader, I was leading. I was leading my class even before I became a Christian, as the captain. I was leading my fellowship in university and was in leadership positions. So I've always been in leadership. I think if I was going to redefine your question slightly, I would say stepping up to certain leadership roles within my leadership.
Okay.
And one of the greatest challenges or difficulties I had was leaving Glory House to step out when God told me to. God had spoken to me and he had said for me to leave, but I was emotionally attached to the leadership, my pastor then, and the leadership and the family of Glory House. And when I discussed leaving, I discussed it in two general terms. I left it wide open.
How old were you then?
Oh, I was just hitting 40.
Okay.
Yes, God was telling me to leave to set up City Chapel. I'd done the First Stadium event, and God was telling me to leave. And in fact, it couldn't be clearer in what He was saying. But I hesitated. And so when my leader told me that maybe God was telling me to leave my pastoral position and focus on the prayer, it made sense to me. So I did not leave Glory House. I left my pastoral position to focus more on the prayer. And then God came to talk to me a year later and told me to run into what He had told me to do. It was very emphatic. Mm-hmm. And then I had to go back to my leader and tell him, my pastor, and just say to him, my dear bro, God has told me to leave. I'm leaving. And the reason why I also hesitated was because I was thinking, how do I take care of my family? Mm-hmm. I'm leaving this position. I'm well taken care of here. I've got a good job. I've got a good salary here. I'm stepping out into something, it's not like the denomination where I could say I'm leaving this post to go to another post. This was leaving something we had jointly created. The church at that time was about 3,000 plus.
Wow.
In membership. I was driving a convertible, cabriolet, Mercedes. So I was comfortable, Errol. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope you're recording me clearly.
Yeah, very clearly.
And so I had to really step out in faith, and God had to really help me. And He sent a number of people that were independent of the situation to confirm and reconfirm that it was the right thing to do.
Okay, wow. And along the journey, did you have mentors? Who? If you tell me who your top 3 most significant mentors been so far?
Well, my first mentor was, and still is my lecturer in medical school, Dr. Larry. Mm-hmm. He is a pharmacologist, and he taught me pharmacology in medical school. Lovely Christian brother, leads a church called Victory in Nigeria, in the village area where the teaching hospital is, mm-hmm. and I stayed true to the teaching of the scriptures and the cross for years. So yeah, he was my first mentor, still is. I think my second significant mentor was Dr. Joel Edwards, okay. Who led the Evangelical Alliance, and he was able to teach me a lot in my years. Dr. Albert Odulele was a mentor for a significant part of my life when I was growing up as a younger man, but he also was 3 years older. We were growing up together, okay. So it was almost like a peer mentor to me, a iron sharpening iron kind of relationship. And Dr. Hugh Osgood as well has been a very good mentor to me in helping support me through the beginning of the Global Day of Prayer and that whole sphere of my life in prayer.
It's awesome. Let me dig a little bit deeper into those relationships. Let me ask you, what's been the best single piece of advice you've received from each of those 3 individuals?
I think from Dr. Lanray, I think it was consistency. Mm-hmm. Consistency, learning to be consistent, reading your Bible every day, waking up, having your quiet time. Your time with God. I think Dr. Larry would I ascribe that to him. Okay. With Dr. Albert, I think it would be the study of the word and allowing the word to explode out of you. Being able to read yourself full, think yourself clear.
Read yourself full, think yourself clear.
Pray yourself hot.
Wow.
And on the stage, let yourself go.
Wow. Wow.
With Joel Edwards, one of the first things I learned from him as a black man to a black man was never be late when you're meeting with white people.
Wow. It sounds simple, but
arrive ahead of them.
What was the wisdom in that, do you think?
Yeah. It is breaking with the stereotype, and it's also being a leader. So I would arrive earlier than most people at a meeting, and I will be prepared for the meeting.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yes. With Dr. Hugh Osgood, I think it was being creative. His church, Cornerstone, was in the early 90s the birthing place for the God Channel. The God Channel came out of his church, and Rory and Wendy Alec were members of his congregation.
Okay.
Cornerstone were pioneers with regards to media and the ability to use media and express yourself through media, and don't let media use you. You use media. Will be one of the things I've learned from Dr. Hugh Osgood.
Wow. We're almost done now. What's the one thing you're most fired up about right now?
The re-evangelization of Great Britain.
Okay, expand on that if you will, please.
The coming revival to Great Britain, to the British Isles. There's a wave coming to these isles, and many people are going to get saved.
Praise the Lord.
It's not something I wish for, it's something I know deep in my spirit. And it's coming. That wave is coming, and we need to get ourselves ready for it.
How do people listening, leaders are listening, young people are listening, how do they get ready for it, and how can they be a part of that?
Number one, they need to tune their radios, their internal transistor spirits to what God is saying to them. For some of them, God is going to move them from where they are. God is going to change relationships, platforms. They can't be locked into what man is saying, what structure is saying, what denominations are saying. They need to be where God is telling them to be. So it's receiving direct orders from heaven, hearing God speak. Number two is preparing, learning, and getting ready for what God is going to.
In what way?
Sorry?
Preparing in what way? Is it about reading ourselves full, like you were saying earlier?
Yes, reading, studying, going to Bible school if they need to, going online, doing courses, acquiring skills that the anointing can come upon. Okay,
I like that. See, I like that. Acquiring skills that the anointing can come upon. In some circles, there's an unspoken code that the biggest job, or the number one job in the house, in the kingdom, is the senior pastor, and everything else is inferior to that. And
that is anti the kingdom.
And well, the consequence, I think, is a lot of young people now, they're seeing them. They may, who wants to be a teacher is not as good, or business person is not as good, and there's a mindset thing there that we're trying to break, I think, in the minds of young people, that they can impact, they can develop skills that God can anoint, as you said, What's your take on that?
Yes, it's in answer to your first question and your second question. Everybody needs to be in position. You've heard of the 7 mountains of society, like government, education, media, all those platforms that create the society, health, politics, law, education, whatever. People, God has called us to occupy those areas. The body of Christ is the army of God, and everybody needs to be in their positions. The church is the salt shaker, but the salt has to get out of the salt into the food or into the stew to make it of any use. And so the people of God in the church need to be shaken out of the church into society, into the health sector, into the NHS, into the law, into the military, into the media, all into these areas, and they need to be lights where they are. That is how a nation is discipled and transformed.
Amen. 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 I love that. And is there a book or a resource that you'd recommend to a leader or entrepreneur that's listening right now?
The book I could recommend has 66 books in it.
That's great.
I would encourage everybody that's listening that's got an Android or Apple, for them to get something called the Blue Letter Bible. Okay. It's an app. They can download it for free, and it enables them to delve into the scriptures. It enables them to go deeper into the scriptures, to analyze the scriptures, to absorb the scriptures, to know each word, what it means in Greek or Hebrew, its context. The Blue Letter Bible app is a very powerful app. I recommend it.
Awesome.
It's more of a tool than a book, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there any other books also that you'd recommend in addition to that?
You're not going to let go of this book.
We want to read ourselves.
The reason why I don't recommend, I tend not to recommend books because I'm prophetic.
Right.
And you see, for everybody listening, there is a book that God has ordained for them to read in their context, in their season. And what tends to happen is when a leader recommends a book, it can actually, be out of context to a person's context. Yes.
I understand.
So,
I understand.
one of my best authors is T.W. Tozer.
Yeah.
I recommend any book by T.W. Tozer.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's great. That's wonderful. Wow, and so how do we find out more about you and about your work? Is there a website you can point us to? Are you on social media?
I'm on social media, and people can follow me on Twitter, Jonathan.Oloyede.
Fantastic. And your website?
Yep. And ndopw.com.
ndopw.com. That's National Day of Prayer
and Worship.
And worship.com. Fantastic. Yes. Dr. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Thank you for sharpening us today. We've been inspired by hearing your wisdom. And thank you so much. God bless you, sir.
You too. Have a wonderful, wonderful week and in the seasons ahead. Amen. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol@errollawson.com, or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around the leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away. We'll get you booked in. It's Errol@errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes, give us a nice review. That would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.